Okay, in this presentation, we're going to cover the basics of fat loss. So we'll get straight into it. What is fat loss? Now, it's actually very simple. Fat loss occurs when you get yourself into an energy deficit. The way we get energy is from eating food. And the way that we measure the energy that comes from that food is through calories or kilojoules. They both mean the same thing, they're just a different way to represent the energy that's in food. Now, just like any unit of measurement, like kilometers and miles and inches, you know, calories are just a unit of measurement. Now, if we consume less calories than what our body needs to sustain its functions, along with increasing our energy expenditure through movement and any kind of exercise, we will no longer have the energy that we require. So our body now has to get this energy from somewhere, and it gets it from stored fat. This is called a calorie deficit, and I'm sure you've already heard this before. If you sustain a calorie deficit, you will continue to lose weight. There's no ifs or buts about it. The opposite of being in a calorie deficit is a calorie surplus. Now, this is where we consume more calories than what our body needs on a daily basis, and we don't burn them off. If you do this, right, then you're going to end up gaining fat over time if you consecutively eat in a calorie surplus. So you've got a calorie deficit, which is responsible for fat loss. You have a calorie surplus, which is responsible for fat gain. And then you have maintenance, which means we stay the same. Maintenance is when we consume just the right amount of calories for our body to maintain its weight, right? Now, we know that 1 kilo of fat is 7,700 calories. So half of that is 3,850 calories. Now, in order to lose half a kilo of fat per week, we would need to reduce calories by 3,850. And we'd have to do this across the entire week. So that would mean eating in a 550 calorie deficit, which is 500 calories below your maintenance calories. And you'd have to do this for 7 days straight, which would lead to half a kilo of fat loss. And for a lot of people, this is a very sustainable rate of fat loss. So an example, so you can understand this a little bit better. If someone's maintenance calories was 2,500, so the amount of calories that they could eat every day and not see a change in weight, you would now eat 550 calories less, which would be a calorie deficit of 950. Now, if you dropped calories further, for example, by 1,100, this would lead to 1 kilo of fat per week. If you could sustain this, you would lose 1 kilo a week. But for many people, that would be really hard and incredibly hard to sustain because that's a big drop in calories. So, to help you think about it or understand it a little bit better, a small calorie deficit will lead to slower fat loss, but it's going to be way more sustainable. Whereas a larger calorie deficit will lead to faster fat loss, but will be way less sustainable. The larger the deficit, the more likely you are to experience low energy, hunger, increased cravings, moodiness, GI disorder or discomfort, discomfort, and stress, overall stress, which is why we need to find what works for you best. Now, like I said before, for many people, this is going to be about half a kilo a week, which is a 550 calorie deficit. A lot of people can do this for quite a long time and not feel a lot of the things that I just listed, but everybody's different. But that also doesn't mean that you can't go more aggressive or less aggressive. It really just depends on you as an individual. And this is where, having a coach comes in handy, because we can work this out. But the only way to do it is by putting it into action and going through trial and error. Now that you know all this, the first thing we need to do is determine your maintenance calories. And to do this, we're going to use a calorie calculator. Now, as a part of the coaching, I'll work it out for you. But essentially, what you do is you input your age, your height, your gender, your weight into a calorie calculator. They have a couple of formulas, but there's only one that's like actually properly accurate. And after you put all that information in, it will give you your maintenance calories, right? And this is a rough estimation, and it just gives us a place to start. This could be slightly less, it could be slightly more, but the point is we get these maintenance calories, and then we just have to test the waters. So in most cases, we will go straight into a calorie deficit as soon as we, after a week or two of coaching, we'll get straight into that deficit. But the only true way to work out your maintenance is through trial and error and going from there. So the key takeaways from this presentation, right? Fat loss occurs when you get yourself into a consistent calorie deficit, right? And this really just means eating less calories than what your body needs to sustain its functions, right? And then if you wanted to add a sprinkle on top, we would throw in exercise also. But fat loss mainly comes from the restriction of calories. And we will talk about exercise and its role in all of this in a future presentation. But consuming less calories will lead to fat loss. And then the other thing that you want to take away from this is smaller calorie deficit means more sustainable fat loss, because you're not going to feel all of the you're less likely to feel hunger, you're not going to be lacking in energy. But as a result of taking it slower and having that smaller deficit, your rate of weight loss is going to be slower. But that is sustainable fat loss for you. And then a larger deficit means much less sustainability, because again, you are going to feel hungry. You're probably going to have more cravings. There's going to be a lot of things that come along with that. And it really, again, just depends on the individual. If you were someone that wanted to go quite aggressive, we wouldn't just jump straight into that. We would build you up to that. But yeah, smaller deficit, more sustainable, slower fat loss. A larger deficit, less sustainable for most people, but quicker fat loss. And yeah, or again, I've said it a few times, it's all relative to the individual. But they are the key takeaways from this presentation. Now, if you've got any questions about it, make sure you ask me. And yeah, thanks for listening. Take it easy, lemon squeezy.